Hey, what's up guys? I hope everyone's doing well. In this one, we're going to take a look at the relaunch of Laravel Forge. So Laravel Forge has been around for quite some time, and I believe it was actually the predecessor to Laravel Cloud. So what's the difference between the two? Well, they say Laravel Cloud is best if you want to configure infrastructure, and Laravel Forge is best if you want more control over that infrastructure. Now, that might sound confusing or just really good marketing. So what I found, because I've been using Forge for a while, and I've also been using Forge in conjunction with another tool at one point, and it was called Laravel Envoyer. And Envoyer promised zero downtime for your deployments with things such as heartbeats and deployment hooks. And it also had like kind of a health check for your application, which is also a separate tool with separate pricing as compared to Forge and also Laravel Cloud. In the comments below, let me know your thoughts around this. But at the end of the day, you can look at Forge as a way to deploy your PHP, Laravel, and HTML applications. And you can look at Laravel Cloud as probably more Laravel specific. All three are good tools, and they each have their own pros and cons, depending on what you're trying to accomplish. Okay, it's time to take a look at what's new outside of the site's new design or refresh, and what are some of the changes that have been made inside of Forge. So if you're new to Laravel Forge and you set up an account, you'll be greeted with something like this. So they try to provide you with something called Laravel VPS, and that's if you're going to provision a server. So there's a manual way to do this. Well, if you're using Laravel VPS, it will configure and optimize a server for you using their partnership infrastructure to create a server for you in seconds or however, quickly that you'd like to get that done. If you click continue, you'll be asked to connect to a Git provider. We could skip this for now. And then you will choose a subscription plan, and you can see more plan options here. Your other option is to set up an external provider, which you have a list here. I'm going to add this provider. And if you guys are actually interested in using DigitalOcean, I provided a link in the description below where you get a $200 credit and you can use it for about 60 days or so, or until those credits run out. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to authorize this. And then we're back to this step where we will connect with a Git provider. So I just want to point out that either way, you still have to go through with the onboarding and select the plan. So here we are. And if you're familiar with the old interface for Laravel Forge, this is going to look completely different. So right here, you have your overview, you have your servers, you have any recipes. So this is the same as Laravel Forge in the past, where you'd be able to create scripts and you'd run them on the server to do things that you would have to do manually by, maybe SSHing in or doing something along those lines. And over here, you have your usage. So this is if you were using Laravel VPS to provision your server. And you're going to have teams over here, pretty straightforward. You can upgrade to different classes here. And then you have your settings. And over here to the left, these are pretty straightforward. I won't go into great detail about these ones. So there's another nice convenience over here. They've added a command palette. And this was nice because if you were looking up documentation before this update, you'd have to go to Forge's documentation over here. And you'd have to look up some things or just try to figure out some things that you're trying to do. And it was great documentation, but I think they made it a little bit more convenient here for you guys to kind of use the contextual menu or the command palette to search for certain things and do different actions here. So like creating recipes, this will take you directly to that where you can start a recipe and you can put your script in. So really kind of nice to have, as before you'd have to kind of like just go through the tabs and look things up. And this kind of looks familiar to me because it looks like it's using maybe fluxui or something like that. Do check out those videos if you're interested too as well. I do have some videos on the channel around fluxui and how to use that. But let's go back to the overview here. And we're going to create a new server. It'll randomly generate a name for you, which is fine, but you can choose whatever you want to do. And you can pick your provider. And remember in the beginning, I did set up DigitalOcean as my provider, but you can use Laravel VPS or a custom VPS, or you can add your own provider. And I'm going to choose my provider as my team, which is DigitalOcean, the account that I'm connected to. And I'm going to hit continue. Now, DigitalOcean does offer a bunch of different types, and you can like click the drop down here and you can select different versions. So it's nice that you have these options depending on what you pick and what provider you're using, you'll be presented with different options. And down here is going to be the server size. And this is going to be different offerings depending on what provider you choose or what provider you have. So I'm just going to pick the default one or the smallest one for this one. So I just want to keep you in the loop here and keep you informed. This is also a fee on top of your regular monthly or yearly Forge subscription. So you'll have a service that you're paying for via DigitalOcean or some other provider at whatever price a month, plus your usage for Forge and the service. So I just want to keep that in mind and let you guys know that that's how that's working. And you have some advanced settings here. So you can choose the type of server that you want, the version of PHP you're looking for. So if you want to jump to the latest one, and here you can choose the database type, whether you're using MySQL, MariaDB, Postgres, and whatever version that makes sense for your application. and you could do backups here. So these are all the features that are also provided within your provider. So we'll just leave this as is. I'm going to use PHP version 8.4, and I'm just going to click update, and that will stay the same. I'm going to create this server. Now, this is also important. When I was using Forge a while back, when it first came out, some of this stuff was new and there's some nuances I didn't understand. You definitely want to keep your pseudo passwords safe, and you want to keep your database passwords safe. From my understanding, at one point, this was emailed to you with whatever email you provided. So for now, right now, I'm just going to download this as text and save it. Now, the provisioning part takes a little bit of time. This might take 10 minutes or so. So in the meantime, you can grab yourself a drink or coffee while you're doing this. So now that my server is finally provisioned, it starts to look a little bit familiar with some of the details, aside from the aesthetics and the changes to the site of the old Forge site. So you have your networking over here, and you have your details of your server, the version of PHP I'm using, the version of Ubuntu, the region, and so on and so forth, and when it was provided or created. So if we go to overview, this is what we're seeing here. We're seeing our sites. This is where we're going to add our sites if you have sites to add. And down here we have databases. This is where we're going to add additional databases. So this is the default database with that credential that you saw before. This is what you would need to log in or access that database. And at the very bottom, they have activity, so that anything that's been going on since this server has been created, which is good to track. So over here we have sites. If I click on the sites tab, I haven't created any sites yet. Over here we also have storage. And this is where some of the details around your database are stored. Now, what I like to do, which is really good, and I don't want to get sidetracked, but I just want to tell you guys real quick, is that if you have access to a tool like Table Plus, you can copy this database connection URL right here, and you can import from URL. So it's basically just copy this URL, and if I say import, it will then create a connection to the databases that are available on this server. And then you would provide the right credentials, and you'd be able to connect to your database. So if we wanted to add a database here, we would go here and we'd add a database, and we create the database name. And you could have an optional user, someone that's assigned to that database, and it change the password, or you can generate a password right now. If you don't choose a password, it will default to the password that was created in the application. The default database user right now is Forge, and you can edit this. So that's really cool, and that's very useful. And Forge can create automated backups for you, and depending what service you're using or how you want to do that, or your infrastructure, this can also be convenient. And over here you have background processes. I won't get into this, but if you guys are interested, let me know. And over here underneath the PHP tab, the old version of Forge had these settings set up as well. Let's say you had PHP 8.2 on here. They also give you the ability to delete that, and you can just clean up your server a little bit and have one version or multiple versions or whatever you're doing. And at one point, I think you had to actually go in there and run script to remove that. The Laravel Forge update is new as of today, and I did try this, and I was like, wow, this is really convenient that I can now delete versions of old or stale PHP that I've had on the server that, for whatever reason, I'd have to go in and manually do that. And this is another favorite here. So composer packages. So if you're ever using fluxui or another library or something that requires credentials, let me show you actually. Let's do this. Let me go out to fluxui. So Laravel Forge makes this really convenient. So for instance, you'd have to go here and you would point to the repository, the URL, and then you provide your email and password. Inside of Forge, this is what I would do. I would add those credentials. I put in the repository URL, put in my username, which would be the email address, and my password, and then I would add those credentials. So these credentials would be available in the Composer configuration file, which is really handy. Below Composer, we have Nginx templates, and I won't go into that or provide an example right now, but if you guys are interested, let me know. Over here, we have Observe. And Observe is going to have a bunch of different features when you create a site, and then you have your settings. So this is for the server. These are all welcome features. These are all things that are great. And I think some of this stuff was not available in Forge and, a little more accessible. So this is where your SSH keys are stored. You have networks. There's a bunch of things that you can add, firewall rules. This is great too. You can add Redis and set that up here. All right, it's time to add a new site. And what I do like is, this is available in a few places. You can click down here and click add a new site. You can choose Laravel, WordPress, whatever it may be, Next.js, HTML, other. So that's one area to do it. You can also click here and it does the same thing, gives you the same options. If you actually go to the tab and you click sites as well, the same thing pops up. So they give you, the ability to create a new site in various places. Let's just do it here. And because I connected my repository service or my Git service, it automatically just goes through and I can have access to all my repositories. In this case, this is the repository I'm going to use. I can pick the branch, I could say like deb or main or whatever it is, but we'll just select that. You can choose the main branch. You can select different branches. Over here, you can connect to the database or create the database that is going to belong with this site on Forge. So right now it's Forge because that's the default, that's the default database that we set. But you could create another DB for this, call it dev underscore something, or, maybe it's the main site or whatever you're doing, right? And you can do that here as well. So this part is actually new to Forge, and it's called Forge domain. So you could use a custom domain. So you could click here and you could, redirect your domain here and use that to test out your site or do whatever you're doing. And you can get a domain from, someplace like, say, Namecheap or some other provider, GoDaddy, whatever. Or you can use Forge domains, which is kind of cool. So you get a .on-forge.com, and you can use this and share this with whoever, and then you can disable this later. And then you can install any dependencies, and you can create a deploy key from the source code provider. They also have some advanced options, which I find really cool. And some of this was available in Forge too. So it's just the way that they've restructured this and they put things in different places that kind of make sense. But majority of the functionality that was in Forge is still here. So things like push to deploy. Let's say this was like a dev version of the application, and every time you did a commit and it uploaded to your repository, Forge would then automatically deploy this to your server. Now, there's pros and cons around this, and I'll show you a technique that kind of makes sense if you want to do something like this, but you wouldn't want to do this necessarily maybe on production or something like that. And here's the zero downtime deployments. You turn that on, and this is a feature, as you've seen at the very beginning of the video, that was available only to Envoyer. So I think they took a little bit of Envoyer and they put it together here with Laravel Forge. So it would be interesting to see how Envoyer moves forward in the future. And once again, in the advanced settings down here, you have package authentication. So this is kind of what I showed you before, where you put a repository URL, your email, and the password. So if you're integrating something like Flux on a per site basis or something like that, this is really good, really handy. So don't be afraid to go into the advanced settings, and there's some really welcome features here that were available with the previous version of Forge that are now also in here. So we're just going to save these settings, keep it the same, and then we're going to create the site. Okay, so I went ahead and I created the site and I did a few deployments. I just didn't want to create a generic Laravel site. Here's our application running inside the browser. What's really cool here is the most important thing is that, it's using an on.forge.com URL. So this is the free one that's provided with Forge. Now, if you wanted to share this with everyone else, they would just, copy this URL and they'd be able to see this application. But what if you wanted to restrict access to certain individuals or just maybe a client or whoever, if you're testing or creating something that you don't want everyone to have access to? This is how it's done. So if you head over to network and under security, you will see add security rule. And we'll leave this blank for now so that it protects all the routes. So then we're going to add some credentials and then you'd add the security rule. So now we have the sign-in modal, which requires some credentials. So we'll give it the credentials we provided when we created our rule. And now you will see that we have our site accessible again once we get past the credentials. And you can see that can be very useful. You can also do redirects and things like that, add a redirect rule and so forth. But if you go to settings, your environmental files or your variables here, they're kind of hidden, which is nice. And then, if you hit this reveal button, it'll show you what the actual content of that .env file is. But I like that. That was never available before in Laravel Forge, the older version. Forge also gives you, some additional features here. You get like a nice repository badge. And under Observe, you also have the ability to add that heartbeat that I was telling you about, like a health check. You can also edit your Nginx configuration, so it's really kind of handy. A lot of the things have been the same as the old Laravel Forge version. So you can add things like gzip and so on and so forth. And, the default on forge.com, it's also encrypted. It has a little lock here. And the old Laravel Forge version had Let's Encrypt and a bunch of other SSL certificates, which is still available. I really want to applaud the Laravel team for, maintaining Forge and, adding the features that they added for this iteration. And I'm really happy with it. And I'll continue to use that stuff as well. Be sure to leave a comment below for me, guys. And if there's anything you want to see that I may not have covered, do so as well. Leave those comments and I'll see if I can cover those for you guys. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you guys got to test this out and know that you still have options outside of Laravel Cloud to deploy your applications using Laravel Forge. If you found this video useful, guys, be sure to subscribe, like, and thumbs up, and I'll see you guys in the next one.